The night was quiet, but not silent. In the distance, the hum of traffic on the highway rose and fell like a tired heartbeat. The wind slid through dry weeds and rusted fence posts, carrying the faint smell of rain that had never arrived. At the edge of a forgotten property stood a gate, flaked with rust, chains loose from years of disuse, and by that gate, as he had done every evening for almost 2 years, a German shepherd waited. He did not pace, he did not whine, he simply stood, head bowed but ears alert, eyes locked on the dirt road that curved toward town. His coat, once thick and brilliant, had dulled into patches of coarse gray and tangled brown. Ribs pressed lightly against his sides. The pads of his paws were worn from circling the same patch of earth. Yet still his vigil remained unbroken. Neighbors whispered about him. A few tossed scraps over the fence. Others shook their heads, too afraid to get close. "That dog is waiting for someone who isn't coming back," one man muttered as he drove by. And perhaps he was right, for every evening, at the exact hour the sun sank low enough to stain the sky in crimson, the shepherd pressed closer to the gate, tail stiff with expectation. But no car turned down the road, no voice called his name. The seasons had carved their stories onto his body. Summer had scorched his paws and left him panting beneath the iron bars. Winter had coated his back in frost, shivers rattling through his bones as snow clung to his whiskers. Still he endured. Day after day, night after night, he clung to a loyalty no one else could see. Sometimes he dreamed, if dogs could dream, of the life that had once been his. A hand stroking the top of his head. The slam of a car door followed by laughter. A warm voice calling him by a name that now only lingered as an echo in his ears. But in the waking world, there was only silence, broken by the occasional rumble of engines passing him by. And then, one evening, when the wind was colder than usual and the shepherd's body trembled from hunger, headlights slowed at the bend in the road. The dog stiffened, heart quickening in the hollow of his chest. A truck rolled to a stop. The driver leaned forward, peering through the glass as if unsure of what he was seeing. The shepherd didn't move. He did not bark. He only stared back, his amber eyes wide, caught between hope and mistrust. The man inside the truck hesitated. This wasn't his road. This wasn't his problem. And yet something in the stillness of that animal pinned behind the gate tugged at him. He saw not just a dog, but a question. How long had he been waiting? For whom? And how much longer could he survive? For the shepherd, the world seemed to hold its breath. The rumble of the engine was steady, the beam of the headlights bright against his face. He lowered himself slightly, as if ready to spring forward should the door open. His body knew hunger, his bones knew cold, but his heart knew only the ritual of waiting, and it told him this could be the moment. The driver's hand hovered over the handle. He glanced at the time. He thought of his own life waiting at home, his children, his responsibilities, his fatigue. But the image of the shepherd, 2 years of devotion etched into his frame, would not let him turn away. The man finally pushed the door open. The hinges squealed and the cold air rushed in. He stepped out slowly, boots crunching on gravel. The shepherd's eyes followed his every move, chest rising and falling in rapid bursts. A low whimper escaped his throat, half warning, half plea. The stranger stopped just short of the gate. For a long moment neither moved. It was as if time itself had paused, the night suspended in the thin line between trust and fear. Then, with a trembling breath, the shepherd took one step closer to the bars. His nose brushed the rusted iron, inhaling the stranger's scent, searching for something familiar, something that might mean safety. The man crouched, voice soft, almost a whisper. "Hey, boy, what are you doing out here?" The words were gentle, but they broke something inside the dog. His tail twitched, uncertain, his body torn between years of waiting and the fragile possibility of being seen at last. For 2 years he had stood alone at the gate, and now, On this night, someone had finally stopped.
The stranger stayed crouched in the dirt, his breath fogging in the cool night air. His boots pressed into gravel, hands resting loosely on his knees. He did not move closer, did not stretch out a hand as others might. Instead, he let silence carry his intent, gentle, patient, unthreatening. The German shepherd tilted his head, ears twitching at the unfamiliar calm. Most who slowed along the road stayed only a moment before their engines roared back to life. This man, however, lingered. The dog's ribs lifted in quick, shallow breaths. His nostrils flared against the scent of metal, oil, and something faintly human. Soap, perhaps, or the dust of the man's day. His eyes narrowed, searching the stranger's face for meaning. Was he another false hope, destined to vanish like the others? Or could this pause at the gate be different? The man spoke again, barely louder than a whisper. "You look tired, buddy. How long you been out here?" His voice held no command, only wonder. The shepherd shifted his weight, pressing his nose harder against the bars. A sound broke from his throat, raw, hoarse, more sigh than bark. The man's chest tightened. It was not just hunger that had hollowed the dog. It was grief, stretched thin over years of waiting. The stranger reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out half of a sandwich wrapped in greasy paper. The dog stiffened, tail flicking with suspicion. Slowly, deliberately, the man unwrapped it and slid a small piece beneath the lowest rung of the gate. The shepherd lowered his head, sniffed, and, after a tense moment, snatched the bite into his mouth. He chewed quickly, retreating a few steps with wary eyes still fixed on the man. "Good boy," the stranger murmured. He set down the rest of the sandwich, backing away to give space. The dog edged forward again, nose working, paws scraping the earth, as if every step forward carried the weight of betrayal remembered. Finally, hunger won. He devoured the scraps, licking the dirt long after the food was gone. The man's heart sank. A dog that thin should have collapsed long ago. And yet he endured. Something greater than survival had tethered him here, an invisible bond to a master who had long abandoned him. The stranger swallowed hard. He knew he couldn't just leave. But the gate was locked. The padlock, rusted but intact, clung stubbornly to the chain. Behind it, the shepherd sat now, tail curled to his side, eyes trained on the man as though waiting for judgment. The stranger tried calling, tried clapping softly, but the dog only watched, unwilling to break the distance between them. There was loyalty in his eyes, but also fear, the kind forged by too many false promises. At last the man stood, brushing the dirt from his knees. "I'll come back," he said aloud, though more to himself than the dog. "I promise." His words vanished into the night, unheard, or perhaps, deep down, understood. He climbed back into the truck, headlights cutting through the darkness as the engine roared to life. In his rearview mirror, he saw the shepherd return to his post at the gate, as if sealing himself back into his ritual. The sight followed him home, imprinting itself into his thoughts. That night, the man lay awake in bed. His wife stirred beside him, half asleep, asking what kept him restless. He described the dog at the gate, 2 years of waiting, a body thinning by the day, eyes carrying the weight of unspoken sorrow. She was quiet for a moment before replying softly, "If you don't go back, who will?" Morning came with a dull gray sky. The man loaded a crate into the truck bed, along with a bowl, some bottled water, and a bag of kibble borrowed from a neighbor. He drove back down the dirt road, heart pounding with the uncertainty of what he might find. The gate came into view, and there he was, just as before, standing tall despite exhaustion, eyes fixed on the horizon. As the truck approached, the shepherd's ears perked, head lifting. He remembered. The man parked, stepping out with careful movements. He poured water into the bowl, the sound of splashing catching the dog's attention. The shepherd approached, wary but desperate. He drank until the bowl was dry, water dripping from his chin. For the first time, his tail gave a hesitant wag. The man knelt again, voice steady. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to help." He reached slowly toward the chain, testing the padlock. It groaned, corroded, but held fast. He tugged again, harder. The shepherd barked sharply, startling them both. The man froze, heart thundering, but instead of retreating, the shepherd pressed his nose once more to the bars. His eyes shone not with aggression, but with pleading. The stranger whispered, "You want out of here, don't you?" And in the stillness of that gray morning, it was as if the dog answered without a word.
The lock gave way with a brittle snap. Rust flakes scattered across the man's hands as the chain fell loose and coiled onto the dirt. For the first time in 2 years, the gate creaked open. The German shepherd didn't move. He stood rooted to the ground, trembling, as if freedom itself was a foreign language he no longer knew how to speak. The man crouched low, holding the gate ajar. "It's okay, boy. You're free now." His voice was steady, coaxing, though his own pulse rattled with nerves. The shepherd took one cautious step forward, then another, nostrils flaring as if the air outside the fence carried a scent too vast, too unknown. When his paws finally touched the gravel road, his body faltered. His legs quivered beneath him, muscles unaccustomed to anything more than pacing a few warm circles. He nearly collapsed. The man caught him gently, sliding an arm beneath his chest, holding up the weight of bones wrapped in fur. "Easy. I've got you." The shepherd sagged against him. In that moment, all suspicion seemed to drain away, leaving only exhaustion. His amber eyes fluttered closed for an instant, as though surrender itself was the only strength he had left. The man lifted him carefully into the crate in the truck bed, padding it with an old blanket. The shepherd didn't fight. He curled into himself, ribs rising and falling with fragile rhythm. The drive to town was quiet except for the occasional whimper from the back, a sound so raw it pierced through the hum of the engine. By the time they pulled up outside the vet's office, the morning sun had burned through the gray clouds. The man carried the dog inside, cradling him as though he might shatter. The receptionist's eyes widened. "How long has he been like this?" 2 years, maybe more," the man answered, his voice hoarse. The shepherd was laid gently on the examination table. Bright lights overhead illuminated every scar, every protruding bone. The vet pressed a stethoscope against his chest, listening with a furrowed brow. She lifted his lips to check his gums, pale and dry. She felt along his abdomen, the hollowness shocking even to her trained hands. "She's severely malnourished," she said quietly. "Dehydrated. His body's been running on empty for a long time." The man clenched his fists. "But he'll make it, right?" The vet hesitated, choosing her words with care. "We'll try. He's got spirit, that's clear, but his organs may have taken damage. We need to get fluids into him immediately." A catheter slid into the shepherd's leg. Saline dripped steadily into his veins, and with each drop the man found himself holding his breath as though willing the liquid to keep life tethered inside that frail body. The dog stirred once, groaning softly, eyes rolling toward the stranger who had brought him here. Their gaze met briefly. In those tired eyes there was no fight, only trust, fragile, tentative, but undeniable. Hours stretched long in the sterile room. Machines beeped softly, papers shuffled, voices murmured in the distance. The man never left the shepherd's side, resting a hand against his paw, grounding him with presence alone. He thought of his own children at home, and how they waited for him each evening, certain he would return. What had this dog been waiting for, day after day, year after year, only to be left with nothing? The thought hollowed him. Then, without warning, the shepherd's breathing hitched. His chest rose in short, shallow gasps. Alarms blared. The vet rushed back, calling for her assistant. "He's crashing. Get oxygen, now!" The man stumbled back as they worked quickly, fitting a mask over the shepherd's muzzle, adjusting the flow, checking his heart rate. The beeping steadied, then faltered again, teetering on the edge between life and silence. The man pressed his palms together, whispering under his breath, "Please, don't let him go. Not after all this time." Minutes felt like hours. Then, slowly, the rhythm of the dog's chest began to even out. The beeping steadied into a fragile consistency. The vet exhaled, wiping her brow. "He's holding on, but he's not out of danger yet." The man stepped closer, brushing the shepherd's ear with trembling fingers. "You're stronger than this. Don't give up now." As the IV fluids continued their steady drip, a subtle change began. The shepherd shifted, his body curling slightly toward the man's hand. His tail, thin and brittle, gave the faintest twitch. It was not much, but in that sterile room, under the cold fluorescent lights, it was everything. The vet placed a hand on the man's shoulder. He chose to hold on when he could have let go. That means he's fighting, and that means you can't leave him. The man nodded, voice breaking. "I won't." That night, as the shepherd slept under observation, the man sat in the corner of the room, refusing to leave. Each breath the dog took was a battle won, each moment a fragile miracle. The weight of 2 years at the gate lingered between them, but for the first time there was also a new question hanging in the air. What if, after all the waiting, this dog finally had someone worth waiting for?